I was born in Austria, and when I was very small, my mother she was an artist, and she was very interested in the archaeological digs that were going on at the time. And she was very interested in the Celts, and she would talk about the Celts all the time. And she talked about them with great reverence. That's all I remember is the tone. It came across very, very respectful and reverent about the Celts. And so I took it in as a little kid and promptly forgot about it. And then I came to the States, and when I was 12, I became an American citizen. When I was in my 30s, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I heard Irish music for the first time. And it just blew my mind. I mean, what is that, And I became a Cayley dancer, Irish traditional dance. And I was kind of a nerd, a fanatic about Irish traditional everything at that point. Cultural appropriation was not a thing in those days. We didn't have to worry about it. We just loved, we were all dancing, and nobody cared if you were Irish or Irish American. It was just, we loved to dance. So I did that. And then I was working as an herbalist in Philadelphia. And one of my clients came and we was talking, when I do case taking, I ask them, why are you here? And then they tell me their whole story. And she just mentioned that she had met Isaac Bonowitz, who was a Druid, and that she was very impressed. And I had never heard the word Druid. I had never heard the word Druid spoken out loud. But for some reason, the minute I heard that word, it was like, like I like to say, it's like a harp string, ding, I just knew. And then this was before we had internet. It was in the 80s. And so I spent the next few years trying to find Druids. And I did finally. And I joined ADF. There were only 30 members at the time. An Riocht Fine. And I was one of the first group of people there, and I did 2 initiations with them, second circle. But they weren't Celtic enough for me. They were very Indo-European, which is funny because I'm slowly becoming more Indo-European myself. But I wanted something Celtic because in my mind, Druids were part of Celtic culture. And Norse Druids and Russian Druids and Polish Druids just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so I've always been drawn to the Irish side of things. And that's kind of how I became a Druid. I was co-founder of the Order of White Oak, which I actually started a mailing list on Yahoo in 1996, I believe, called White Oak. And the reason it was called White Oak was I live in an oak forest, and I literally went outside and I asked the trees, I said, what should I call it? And they said, call it White Oak. And what I didn't know at the time was that the largest white oak tree on the entire east coast of the United States was 20 minutes from my house. And I didn't find that out until years later. But anyway, so I started this Yahoo list, and I pulled together the best Druid minds that I could find, Alexei Kondratiev and Brendan Myers from Moon Books, he was on it. And anyway, so we literally, for 1 year, we had a discussion, what is a Druid? And we spent an entire year just trying to answer that question. And then I guess around the fall of 1996, we realized that because we had said, oh, these are the best books, this is what a Druid needs to know, we realized we had a teaching program. So 12 of us self-initiated, including Brendan, and that was at winter solstice. And we became the original group of White Oak. And then we decided to become a Druid order. and we created all the rules for the order. And Brendan was the scribe, but the rest of it, every single rule for the order, we debated and discussed. So we created the Order of White Oak, and that group lasted until 2014. It kind of petered out. We were basically online. Every year I would have a Druid camp at my house, but it was usually people from New England, and White Oak had people from all over the world. And it's really hard, to pull people together when you're global like that. So it kind of lost steam, but I wanted it to keep going because the teaching program was too valuable. I didn't want to lose it. So I created Tribe of the Oak, tribeoftheoak.com, if anybody's interested. And it's the same teaching program with maybe a few things added. So there's a very comprehensive book list. All the initiates, they have to start out by reading the books. I think there's about 18 books at this point. Because the idea is that if you're going to call yourself a druid is an expert, that's what it was in ancient times. So I want them to be very grounded in the history and the archaeology and what we know now. And then after they read all the books, then they do one-on-one fostership, one-on-one training. And I myself initiated about, I think, 18 or 19 people when it was White Oak. And I have, I think about, I haven't counted, 20-something people in Tribe of the Oak who are actively working towards initiation. But it takes a long time. Some people, people who are used to going to college, who have PhDs and things like that, they can usually finish the program in about a year, which is kind of astounding. But mere mortals usually take at least 3 years, probably more like 5 or 7 years to do it, which is fine because the ancient Druids took 20 years. So anyway, that's Tribe of the Oak. Varies depending what phase of publication I am in. I was thinking about that today. When I have a new book out, which happens about every couple of years, I really have to spend 6 months promoting because that seems to be the window when reviewers are interested. And, so if a new book comes out, my major focus is on promoting, but I write every day. So I still write a little bit every day. When I'm not in the promotion phase, a typical day would be I get up in the morning, I make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, something big that I can keep next to me for a few hours. And I write, and then I take a break, I get up and I do something physical, like walking outside or doing housework or doing yard work, something to get me moving, because I can't just be sitting here. Otherwise, I'd be sitting in front of the computer 8 hours a day and my body would fall apart, So I have to consciously, in the winter, I go to the gym. In the summer, I swim. I'm conscious. Okay, it's the middle of the day. I need to go do something. So then I come back, and then in the late afternoon, I write again. I do some more. I don't write at night. At night, it's like a regular job. At night, I want to just have dinner and calm down. I'm writing full time now. And when I had jobs, when I worked, I always had part-time jobs because the writing was a priority. That was my main work. And then the job was just what I did to survive, it's like to bring the money in. I never had a high-powered career where I made a lot of money, but I just always had a part-time something. And I was always teaching also, teaching herbalism. I did that for over 30 years. And that I actually got paid to do, which was nice. But now I do most of my teaching online. So I still do that, and I still do conferences and things like that. That's basically it. This morning I realized I actually write in 4 different genres. I was thinking 3, but it's actually 4. Because I now have 2 children's books out. So I think I can call myself a children's book author. The new one is called Once Around the Sun, Stories, Crafts, and Recipes to Celebrate the Sacred Earth Year. And this is a book of original stories. They're from different European traditions. There's Polish, Irish, Scottish, Norse. I don't know. I think that Italian. Yeah, there's an Italian. So what it does is that I wrote these original children's stories, and then each story has a recipe and a craft that goes with it. So this is to celebrate the 8 festivals of the Sacred Earth Year. All right, so the second genre is herbalism. And I have quite a few herbals out. This is just one of them, Secret Medicines from Your Garden. The reason I mention this one is because it actually won 2 awards, which is very nice. The International Herb Association Book of the Year in 2016 and Council of Visionary Resources, it was one of their books of the year. But most of my herbals are Celtic. I have a Scottish one, and I have a couple of Irish ones. I have 2 tree herbals. So that's the second genre. The third genre, I'm incorrigible. The third one is fiction. And this is my first novel, Priestess of the Forest. It's part of a trilogy, The Druid Isle, which is about the island of Iona, because the island of Iona was a sacred island of the Druids before Columba got there. And then the third book is called Priestess of the Fire Temple, which is basically about the pagan fire temple that inspired St. Bridget of Kildare, because I found out St. Bridget was basically following a pagan model. But this book, the first one, took 9 years while I was writing herbals and other things, because I was terrified. I had never written fiction. I was not an English major. I didn't know what I was doing. I never know what I'm doing. I just do it. So I just, I started out with an outline, and then the characters kept running away from me, and they weren't interested in the outline. They had their own agendas and their minds of their own. And so I had to ask people that were novelists. I said, what do you do when your characters don't fit the outline? And they said, that's what a real novelist is all about. When the characters take over, that's the process. You can't just intellectually outline a book and just stick to that. I mean, anyway. So I had to learn as time went on. So there's now 3 novels, and who knows, now that Moon Books is approaching fiction writing, I'm writing another nonfiction right now, but when that's done, maybe I'll think about, because people keep asking me to do another novel. And then I do books of interviews, and this one, The Legacy of Druids, I'm actually very proud of this one. I think this is very special, and I don't think everybody realizes how special it is. I went around with a microphone and a tape recorder, literally, interviewing prominent Druids all over Britain, all over the US, and Canada, some in Canada. And some of these people are now passing on. And so it's more and more important that their words are captured. And these are the people that really got the modern Druid movement as we understand it now going. People like Philip Carr-Gomm, Isaac Bonowitz, and, just really important founders of the various movements, Druid movements. So if you're interested in Druidism, this is actually an important resource to understand how it all happened. And I have other books of interviews out. I have one called The Real Witches of New England, which is about witches. There's one called Being a Pagan, which is about pagans. And then this one is about druids. Thank you for asking me that, because I had to think really hard. I came up with two, actually, Albert Einstein, but I'm not going to go into his, but he was actually a very spiritual person. So I like reading what he says about spirituality, because he saw no contradiction between spirituality and science. And that's the way I've always felt. I don't understand why people think there's a schism there, why there's, why those two things are separate. They're not. If all creation is sacred, a scientist is studying sacred creation. So anyway, that was Einstein. But my other go-to favorite is a Sanskrit writer named Ashtavakra. And the Ashtavakra Gita is the song of Ashtavakra. I can read this every day for the rest of my life and never get to the bottom of it. I'll just give you some examples. He says, "You do not consist of any of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, or even ether. To be liberated, know yourself as consisting of consciousness, the witness of these." And that's really interesting to me because back when I was an undergraduate, for 2 years, I was a theater and dance major. And I was in a play one time, and we were rehearsing really late at night, and everybody was exhausted, and there was some big drama going on, and I don't even remember what it was, but the director and the actors, there was fighting going on or something, and everything was very tense. And all of a sudden, I had this experience where I just saw in my inner eye, I saw earth, air, fire, and water chasing each other. The fire was trying to burn up the air, and the earth was trying to smother the water, and they were going around like that. And then I was somehow in the center, and it was absolutely still. And that's when I realized, oh yeah, earth, air, fire, and water are going to be constantly fighting with each other, but I don't have to be part of that, So I just stood there in the center where it was absolutely silent, and all the drama was going on around me. And I realized I could be totally detached. And I think I was about 18 at the time, anyway. So I think that's what that phrase is about. He says, "If only you will remain resting in consciousness, seeing yourself as distinct from the body, then even now you will become happy, peaceful, and free from bonds." So as you get older and your body falls apart, and the pains of middle age and then old age set in, somehow I'm going to have to find a way to not be the body even, never mind the drama. So anyway, it goes on like that. "You do not belong to the Brahmin or any other caste. You are not any stage, nor are you anything that the eye can see. You are unattached and formless, the witness of everything. So be happy." And it goes on. I mean, it's like 40 pages, 30 pages of that kind of stuff. So I mentioned when I was little that my mother was very interested in the archaeology and the digs that were going on in Austria. And this must have something to do with it. But when I was a teenager, at one point, I decided that I wanted to be an archaeologist. And I was even thinking I would like to go to Brown University. But that didn't happen. So I never got to study archaeology. And I was also intensely spiritual. Starting at age 13, I taught myself how to meditate. I didn't have any teachers. I didn't know anybody. I just found this book, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones by Paul Reps, and I started reading it. And then the 3 Pillars of Zen, I think that book. And I literally taught myself how to meditate. And I was always on a spiritual path. So I did yoga for many years, and I finally got a transcendental meditation initiation. And then I spent 8 years in an ashram with a Sufi master. So, I mean, I was always doing something spiritual. It wasn't until much later on Facebook, believe it or not, I created an archaeology group, Celtic and Ancient History, Archaeology, and Art, which now has over 7,000 members. So then I realized, I could continue my spiritual studies, which for the last 30 years, I've been a Druid. And I can study the archaeology. So the ancient archaeology and the spiritual studies kind of came together. And that's how the Indo-European interest happened. I would say, don't worry. It's going to be scary. A lot is going to happen. It'll look frightening, but don't worry, because you'll survive it. I need to say that to my old lady self too. And I'm sure when I'm 80 or 90 looking back on this self, I'll be saying the same thing. Don't worry. Well, right now I'm, of course, writing another book. I'm always writing a book. The book that I'm writing at the moment, I don't want to reveal too much, but I'm researching many different gods and goddesses, and that's different because it's not strictly Celtic anymore. And I'm learning a lot, which is interesting. I'm looking at really obscure things like Icelandic, old Icelandic deities and Basque deities and things like that, which is interesting. But I'm going to kind of keep it under wraps, And then the only other thing, I have this ongoing quest with my novels. I keep trying to find somebody who would be interested in maybe making them into a film of some kind, or even a graphic novel, which finds its way into a film. The latest effort, I had all kinds of people lined up. What stopped me was money. But now I'm looking at film students, because film students are all hungry for material, So that's my new, if any film students are out there, or directorial students, or script writing students, if any of you are interested, get in touch. If you're interested in Celtic spirituality. I'm on a number of different writing groups on Facebook, and I see people who say, I want to be a writer. How do I become a writer? You cannot become a writer. You are a writer. To be a writer means to sit in a chair and write. You can't want to be a writer. That makes no sense. There's no substitution for writing if you're going to be a writer. So that's what I would say, basically. It's a discipline. It's no different than learning classical music on the cello. You have to do it. You do it every day. If you have a full-time job, try to do just a little bit. If you have a part-time job, which is what I always did, you can do a little bit more. But you have to do it. You have to just sit in a chair and do it. You can't want to do it. You can't think about doing it. I hear people, they say, oh, someday I'm going to be a writer. someday I'm going to write a novel. That looks really easy. I could do that. I'm like, okay, then do it. But you got to sit in a chair and do it.